The autumn air had always carried a certain kind of loneliness for 8-year-old Emily. The kind that settled deep in your chest when you walked home alone, when the leaves crunched under your feet, and when the only voice you heard was your own heartbeat echoing in your ears. That afternoon, the park looked different. The golden light filtering through the oak trees should have felt warm, comforting even. But Emily's small hands gripped her backpack straps tighter, her knuckles white against the faded purple fabric. She could feel it before she saw them, that prickle on the back of your neck when danger is close. The shadows moved first, then came the voices. "Hey, army brat!" The words cut through the quiet like broken glass. "Where's Daddy?" "Still playing soldier." Emily's breath caught in her throat. She knew those boys. Everyone in the neighborhood knew them. 14, maybe 15 years old, they moved through these streets like they owned them, their laughter cruel and their eyes empty of anything resembling kindness. She tried to keep walking, one foot in front of the other. Don't look at them. Don't engage. That's what her mother always said. But her mother wasn't here. Her mother was working the evening shift at the diner, trying to keep the lights on while Emily's father was deployed overseas, protecting people who would never know his name. The circle closed around her before she could run. If you believe in standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, in protecting the innocent, and in the power of unexpected heroes, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the smallest act of courage can change everything. The tallest one, wearing a torn Metallica t-shirt and a grin that made Emily's stomach turn, reached out and grabbed her backpack. The sudden jerk backward made her stumble, her small body no match for his strength. The bag hit the ground, and before she could react, he kicked it. Hard. The zipper burst open. Notebooks scattered across the dirt path, their pages fluttering like wounded birds. Pencils rolled away. And then Emily saw them. Her drawings, the ones she'd spent weeks making for her father, each one carefully colored, each one a piece of her heart sent across the ocean. One of the boys, the shortest one with acne scars and cold eyes, picked up her favorite drawing. A picture of her family, all holding hands under a bright yellow sun. He held it up, showing it to his friends, and they laughed. That horrible, mocking laughter that makes your soul feel small. Then he tore it in half. The sound of ripping paper was louder than Emily expected, louder than her gasp, louder than the voice in her head screaming for her to do something, anything. But she stood there, frozen, watching the pieces of her drawing flutter to the ground like autumn leaves. Ah, is the little baby gonna cry? The tall one leaned down, his face inches from hers, his breath smelling like cheap energy drinks and cigarettes. What's wrong? Missing your daddy? Emily's vision blurred. Not from fear anymore, but from the hot sting of tears she desperately tried to hold back. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. She wouldn't. But then she felt it. The rough hand grabbing the collar of her jacket, pulling her forward. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Be strong, baby girl. Be strong like your daddy. But her daddy wasn't here. Nobody was here. The boy with the Metallica shirt reached for her jacket zipper, threatening to pull it down, to humiliate her further. Emily's hands shot up instinctively, trying to protect herself, trying to hold herself together. Her voice came out small, broken, a whisper that should have been a scream. Please, stop. They didn't stop. They never stopped. The tears came then, hot and shameful, streaming down her face. She hated herself for crying, hated the weakness in her voice, hated that she was alone. So terribly, utterly alone. The park around her felt vast and empty. A few people walked by on the far path, but they looked away, saw nothing, did nothing. The world kept spinning while Emily's world fell apart. One torn drawing, one cruel laugh at a time. She sank to her knees, trying to gather her notebooks with trembling hands, her tears falling onto the pages, smudging the words she'd written so carefully just that morning. And then, everything changed. The rumble started low, like distant thunder rolling across the horizon. But this wasn't thunder. This was something else. Something powerful. Something that made the ground beneath Emily's knees vibrate with a deep, primal energy. The boys heard it too. Their laughter faltered, dying in their throats like smoke. The sound grew louder, closer. Not one engine, but many. The unmistakable roar of motorcycles, heavy and commanding, cutting through the afternoon air like a declaration of war. Emily looked up, her tear-stained face catching the last rays of golden sunlight, and she saw them. 5 motorcycles appeared from around the corner, riding in perfect formation, their chrome glinting, their engines growling with barely contained power. And on each bike sat a figure that seemed to emerge from the shadows themselves, dressed in black leather, faces hidden behind dark helmets, moving with the kind of synchronized precision that spoke of sisterhood, of purpose, of something ancient and unbreakable. The Iron Angels had arrived. The lead motorcycle pulled to a stop first, just feet away from where Emily knelt in the dirt. The engine cut, and in that sudden silence, Emily heard her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. The other 4 bikes formed a semicircle around them, their riders still mounted, still silent, creating a wall of leather and steel and something Emily couldn't quite name, but felt deep in her bones. Protection. The lead rider swung her leg over the bike with practiced ease and removed her helmet. Long, dark hair tumbled free, streaked with silver at the temples. Her face was weathered, marked with scars that told stories Emily couldn't yet read. On her arms, visible beneath the rolled sleeves of her leather jacket, were tattoos. Roses intertwined with chains. Wings spread wide. Names written in elegant script. Her eyes, sharp and fierce, took in the scene before her in one sweeping glance. The scattered notebooks, the torn drawings, the 3 boys standing frozen like deer caught in headlights, and Emily, small and broken, kneeling in the dirt. "What?" the woman said, her voice low and controlled, carrying the weight of someone who'd seen too much ugliness in this world. "Is going on here?" The tall boy with the Metallica shirt tried to speak, but only a stammer came out. His friends had already started backing away, their earlier bravado evaporating like morning mist under that woman's gaze. The second rider dismounted, removing her helmet to reveal a face younger than the first, but no less fierce. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a tight braid, and her arms, muscular and strong, bore tattoos of their own. A phoenix rising from flames. A quote in elegant script. She believed she could, so she did. "I asked you a question," the first woman said, taking a step forward. She wasn't tall, maybe 5'6", but in that moment, she seemed to fill the entire park with her presence. "What are you doing to this little girl?" Nothing," the tall boy stammered. We were just messing around." Messing around. The woman's voice was flat, emotionless. She looked down at the torn drawings, at the scattered notebooks. Then her eyes found Emily's. and something in her expression shifted. Not softened exactly, but changed, like steel that's been tempered in fire and emerged stronger. She crouched down, bringing herself to Emily's level, and spoke in a voice meant only for the little girl to hear. "Hey, sweetheart, you okay?" Emily couldn't speak, could only shake her head, the tears flowing freely now. That's okay," the woman said softly. "You don't have to be okay right now, but you're safe. You hear me? You're safe now." Behind her, the third rider had dismounted. She was shorter, rounder, with warm brown skin and eyes that crinkled at the corners, like she smiled often. But she wasn't smiling now. She walked past the woman and straight to the boys, her boots crunching on the gravel path. "Pick them up," she said simply. "What?" The tall boy blinked, confused. "The notebooks, the drawings, the pencils, every single one." Her voice never rose above conversational level, but there was iron in it. "Pick them up, carefully, and put them back in her backpack. Now." The boys scrambled to obey, their earlier cruelty replaced by something that looked a lot like fear. Good, Emily thought distantly. They should be afraid. The fourth rider, still on her bike, pulled off her helmet to reveal a face marked by time and experience. Gray streaked through her dark hair, and her eyes held the kind of wisdom that came from surviving things most people couldn't imagine. She watched the boys work, silent and still, a guardian statue carved from determination. The fifth rider was the youngest, maybe early 20s, with vibrant red hair and tattoos covering nearly every inch of her visible skin. She remained on her bike, engine idling, ready to move if needed. But her eyes never left the boys, tracking their every movement like a predator watching prey. When the backpack was full again, the tall boy held it out with shaking hands. But the first woman didn't take it. She simply looked at him, her gaze steady and unblinking. "Give it to her," she said quietly, "and apologize." I'm sorry," the boy mumbled, barely audible. "Louder." The blonde woman stepped forward, her arms crossed. "And mean it." "I'm sorry." The words came out in a rush now, genuine fear making his voice crack. "We shouldn't have. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." Emily's hands were still shaking as she reached for her backpack, but she managed to grip it. The woman helped her stand, her hand steady and warm on Emily's shoulder. "Now," the first woman said, turning her attention fully to the boys. "Let me tell you something about respect, about what it means to be strong." The boys stood there, unable to run, unable to look away. "This little girl?" The woman gestured to Emily. "Her father is overseas right now. He's in a desert on the other side of the world, wearing a uniform, carrying a rifle, putting his life on the line every single day." "You know why?" The boys said nothing. "He's doing it so kids like you can walk safely through this park, so you can go to school, play video games, live your lives without bombs falling on your heads. He's doing it so you have freedom." The woman's voice grew harder, colder. "And while he's out there bleeding for your freedom, you think it's okay to terrorize his daughter? To tear her things? To make her feel small and scared and alone?" The tall boy's eyes were on the ground now. One of his friends was crying. "Real strength," the blonde woman spoke up, her voice sharp as broken glass, "isn't using your size to hurt someone smaller. Real strength is protecting those who can't protect themselves. Real strength is standing up when everyone else walks by." The third woman, the one with the warm eyes, stepped closer to Emily. She pulled something from her jacket pocket, a bandana, soft and clean. Gently, she wiped Emily's tears, her touch maternal and kind. "You know what I see when I look at you?" she said softly to Emily. "I see a warrior. You held yourself together as long as you could. You tried to be brave. And that takes more courage than those boys will ever understand." Emily's lip trembled. I wasn't brave. I just stood there." "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared, honey. Being brave means being scared and still standing your ground. You did that." The first woman turned back to the boys one last time. "You're going to leave now. You're going to go home. Think about what you did. And you're never going to bother this girl or any other kid in this neighborhood again. Because if I hear that you did—" She let the sentence hang in the air, unfinished but heavy with promise. The boys didn't need to hear more. They scattered like leaves in the wind, tripping over each other in their haste to escape. When they were gone, the park seemed to breathe again. The golden light returned, softer now, gentler. The woman with the long, dark hair turned to Emily, and for the first time, she smiled. It transformed her entire face, making her look younger, kinder, but no less strong. "My name's Rebecca," she said. "These are my sisters, Jessica, Dana, Linda, and Michelle. We're the Iron Angels." Emily sniffled, clutching her backpack to her chest. Why are you called that?" Rebecca knelt down again, bringing herself eye level with the little girl. "Because angels aren't always soft and gentle, sweetheart. Sometimes they're fierce. Sometimes they ride motorcycles and wear leather and look scary as hell. But they're still angels, still protectors. We protect people who need protecting," Jessica added, her stern expression softening slightly. "Kids like you, veterans, families, anyone who's been knocked down by a world that forgot how to be kind." Dana, the woman with warm eyes, pulled something else from her jacket. A chocolate bar, slightly melted but whole. "Here, honey. Sugar helps with shock." Emily took it with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank us yet." Linda, the older woman with gray-streaked hair, said with a gentle smile, "We're not done helping you." Michelle, the youngest with red hair, finally shut off her bike and approached. She crouched beside Rebecca, pulling out her phone. "Where's your mom, sweetheart? Does she know you're here?" She's working," Emily managed. "At the diner downtown. She won't be home until late." The women exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them that Emily didn't fully understand, but somehow trusted. "Okay," Rebecca said decisively. "Here's what's going to happen. We're going to take you home, make sure you're safe, and then we're going to have a conversation with your mom about maybe setting up some after-school supervision, yeah?" Emily nodded, still clutching her backpack, still trying to process everything that had just happened. Jessica picked up one of the torn drawings from the ground, the one of Emily's family. She looked at it for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "You drew this?" Emily nodded again, fresh tears threatening. "It was for my dad. But it's ruined now." "No," Jessica said firmly. "It's not ruined. It's battle-scarred. There's a difference." She carefully folded it and handed it back to Emily. "Your dad will understand that. Trust me." As they prepared to leave, Rebecca draped her leather jacket over Emily's shoulders. It was massive on her small frame, hanging almost to her knees, but it was warm and smelled like road dust and freedom and something indefinable that made Emily feel, for the first time that day, truly safe. "You ride with me," Rebecca said, pulling Emily toward her motorcycle. "Ever been on a bike before?" Emily shook her head, eyes wide. Rebecca's smile grew. Well, you're about to have the ride of your life, kid. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe in the power of protection, of standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because the world needs more stories of unexpected heroes. The world needs more Iron Angels. The helmet was too big, but Rebecca adjusted it carefully, making sure it was secure. Emily climbed on behind her small arms wrapping around Rebecca's waist. And suddenly she understood something profound. Strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's a father overseas with a rifle, and sometimes it's 5 women on motorcycles who stopped because they couldn't drive past injustice. The engine roared to life beneath her, vibrating through her entire body. The other 4 bikes started up in sequence, their combined power creating a symphony of controlled chaos, and then they were moving, gliding through the park, the wind whipping past, Emily's tears drying on her face. She looked back once at the spot where she'd been kneeling, where her world had been so dark just minutes before. It looked smaller now, less important, because she'd learned something crucial in that moment of rescue. She wasn't alone. She had never been alone. The world was full of angels, even if they wore leather instead of wings. 3 months later, the knock on the door came on a Saturday morning, just as the sun was painting the kitchen golden. Emily's mother answered, her tired face breaking into a genuine smile when she saw who stood there. "Rebecca," she said warmly, pulling the door open wider. "Come in, please." But Rebecca wasn't alone. Behind her stood the other 4 Iron Angels, along with 3 more women Emily didn't recognize, all wearing the same leather vests, the same patches, the same expression of quiet determination. "Sarah," Rebecca said, using Emily's mother's first name with the familiarity of a friend. "We heard the news about David." Emily's mother's smile faltered, her hand gripping the doorframe. He's coming home next week. They're flying him to the VA hospital. His leg." She couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Rebecca stepped forward and pulled her into a hug, strong and fierce and full of understanding. "We know," she said softly, "and we're here to help." What followed was something Emily would remember for the rest of her life. The Iron Angels didn't just offer empty words of support. They showed up, really showed up. They organized a physical therapy schedule at a clinic that specialized in veterans, using connections they'd built over years of advocacy work. Michelle offered Emily's father a job at her motorcycle repair shop. Flexible hours, understanding environment, work he could do while recovering. Linda started meeting with Emily weekly, free therapy sessions to help her process the fear of that day in the park and the anxiety of her father's injury. Jessica invited Emily to her self-defense classes, teaching her not just how to fight, but how to stand tall, how to project confidence, how to never feel helpless again. And Dana? Dana organized a fundraiser that brought in enough money to cover 3 months of rent, giving Emily's mother the breathing room to cut back to one job so she could spend more time with her recovering husband. But it was what happened the day Emily's father came home that truly changed everything. The Iron Angels were there, all 8 of them now, lined up outside the house with their motorcycles gleaming in the sun. When the medical transport van pulled up, when the doors opened, and Emily saw her father for the first time in 9 months, thinner, older, leaning heavily on crutches with his left leg ending just below the knee, she ran to him. "Daddy!" He caught her with one arm, nearly losing his balance. But Rebecca was there, steady and strong, helping keep him upright while Emily clung to him, sobbing into his chest. "Hey, princess," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I missed you so much." When Emily finally pulled back, wiping her eyes, she saw her father looking at the row of motorcycles, at the women standing beside them, their leather vests bearing patches that read Iron Angels and Protector and Veteran Advocate. "Who?" he started to ask. "They saved me, Daddy," Emily said, her voice stronger now than it had been 3 months ago. "When you were gone, they saved me." Rebecca stepped forward, extending her hand. "Master Sergeant David Mitchell, it's an honor, sir." Emily's father shook her hand, confusion giving way to understanding as the pieces fell into place. "You're the one Sarah told me about. The bikers who did what anyone should do," Rebecca interrupted gently. "We protected your daughter when you couldn't be here to do it yourself, and now we're going to help make sure you get back on your feet." Literally. Over the next year, the Iron Angels became part of Emily's family. They showed up for birthdays and holidays. They taught Emily how to ride a bicycle without training wheels, how to throw a punch, how to speak up when something was wrong. They were there when her father took his first steps with his prosthetic leg, cheering louder than anyone. And they were there the day Emily, 10 years old now, stood in front of her class for show and tell and said, with absolute conviction, "When I grow up, I want to be an Iron Angel. I want to protect people who need protecting." 10 years after that, the young woman adjusted her leather vest, running her fingers over the patch that read, Iron Angels, Prospect. She wasn't a full member yet. That took time, trust, proving yourself, but she was on her way. Emily Mitchell, now 20 years old, stood beside her motorcycle in the parking lot of a community center where they were about to deliver supplies to a family whose father had just returned from deployment. She looked around at the other women, some she'd known for years, others who were new to the group, and felt a profound sense of belonging. Rebecca pulled up beside her, still the leader, still fierce, though her hair was more silver than dark now. She killed her engine and removed her helmet, smiling at Emily with undisguised pride. "You ready for this, kid?" Emily smiled back, remembering that day in the park, remembering the fear and the helplessness and the moment everything changed. "I've been ready my whole life." They went inside together, where a little boy, maybe 7 years old, sat quietly in a corner while his mother tried to hold back tears. The boy's father had lost both legs in combat. The family was struggling. The world felt too big and too cruel. Emily knelt down beside the boy, and when he looked up at her with scared, uncertain eyes, she smiled. "Hey there," she said gently. "I'm Emily, and I want to tell you a story about the day 5 women on motorcycles saved my life. Before we end, let me ask you something. If you saw a child being bullied, would you stop? Would you intervene? Or would you walk by, telling yourself it's not your business? Tell us in the comments. Because the world changes one choice at a time, one moment of courage at a time. The Iron Angels weren't born heroes. They were just women who decided that looking scary was useful if it meant protecting the innocent. They were veterans and teachers and mechanics and therapists. They were mothers and daughters and sisters. They were ordinary people who chose every single day to be extraordinary. And years later, when Emily finally earned her full patch, when Prospect was replaced with Iron Angel in a ceremony surrounded by sisters who'd become her family, she understood something her 8-year-old self couldn't have known. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather. Sometimes they ride motorcycles and have tattoos and look like they could tear the world apart. But really, they're just putting it back together. One rescued kid at a time. One veteran family at a time. One moment of protection at a time. If this story moved you, if you believe in the power of standing up, of protecting those who cannot protect themselves, of being someone's guardian angel when they need it most, please like, share, and subscribe. Because every subscription, every share, spreads the message that kindness and protection still matter, that angels still exist. They just ride motorcycles now. The roar of engines fades into the distance, but the message remains. You don't have to be fearless to be brave. You just have to care enough to stop when someone needs you. And sometimes, the smallest act of courage, stopping your motorcycle when you see injustice, can change a life forever.